Well, I'm hitting against this thing. I'm sorry.
Okay. I didn't, well, I'll mention at the time, we're withdrawing this at the council meeting. We don't need any written, so it's decided, so we're gonna review the resolution.
Okay.
I mean, I can also sit up there.
Are you ready?
Okay. Good afternoon. Finance Committee meeting is starting at 3:01, November 8th. All members are present, that being, did I say adjourn? Yes, Alderwoman Finlayson to my right and Alderwoman O'Neill to my left. At this time, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda. I believe there's no changes.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. At this time, I'll accept a motion to accept the meeting minutes of October 24th.
Motion to approve meeting minutes from 10/24/23.
Madam Chair, I'll second those, but I think I left the meeting early, so I'm not sure how appropriate that is.
I don't, yeah, you're right, you weren't there. Yeah, I'm looking at the,
I was there at part of the meeting, but not, I
that's
left
right, you couldn't
early.
get through, right, the technical problem. So
No, I had to leave early because I had a doctor's appointment. My dad did actually, but
I
anyway.
think you were here for that portion. I'm not sure how that goes.
yeah, they had you recorded incorrectly, it's not here.
Okay. So I can second it then if I was here at the beginning
Yes.
of the meeting? Yes.
Okay, good.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. We have a fund transfer on the agenda. The first one is FT 3-24. Oh, no, sorry.
FT4.
I have the meeting minutes up. Hold on.
Sorry,
And
just connected to my phone.
get out of this. I know, I was reading the minutes. Okay, it's the mayor's office, FT 4-24. I understand this is a fund transfer for no harm. Could, Director Dickinson, can you explain why this is necessary, as we understand that that money was in the budget? Hi.
Yes, Finance Director Jody Dickinson. This is a fund transfer, meaning it's moving appropriations from one account to another because they want to separate no harm funding out into its own account so they can track the expenses better. It's pooled in with some of their other contract services amounts, so they want to separate it.
Okay.
It's all within the mayor's budget, and it's moving between categories, and it's a large dollar value, which is why you have to approve it.
Yeah. So I do see in the budget that it's underneath the special projects, so for 80.
Yes, we put it in special projects, and they want to track it separately in contract services.
Okay.
May I?
Yes, Alderwoman Finlayson.
Director Dickinson, was this grant funding?
No, it's city funding.
Okay. I remember during the budget process, we had a discussion about purported grant funding that was coming in for no harm, did we not?
I don't think so. I would have to defer.
But this
that
is not,
question.
this is money that was
80 is
allocated
not
in the mayor's
grant
budget.
funding, no.
There was some discussion of grant funding in the Office of Community Services where the state funding that had been applied for, the state had decided to essentially not make a decision. And so I remember some grant discussions in that area, but I don't remember it for no harm.
They had a lot of discussion about, I think that was the Hispanic liaison or something, that position, the community outreach position. They wanted some state funding, they didn't get it, but as far as no harm, I don't know enough about the program to say if they were trying to get some grant money for it.
Okay, we did have a discussion about no harm, questioning the accounting of grant funding, even when we weren't sure we were going to get it. It wasn't community services, but this is just money out of the mayor's
It is, and
budget.
if we had grant funding set aside for no harm, we would have had it in one of the grant funds in a project number and not in the mayor's budget.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Thanks. So do we have an accounting of how much of this 80,000 has already been used?
Not here with me, but we can get that.
Okay. I was just interested in, I mean, we're moving it over, but if we've already used some,
We would move the expenses as well. We're not just going to move the budget. Any expenses related to no harm will be transferred into the new account as well.
okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of FT 424,
I recommend favorable.
favorable recommendation.
I'll second.
All in favor of a favorable recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, next we have the supplemental appropriations, one of them, SA 12-24. It is transferring from quote reserved for one-time uses to contractual services, and who would like to speak to that?
This is, and I can give you the generalities. The Office of Law needs extra funding in its budget to help cover union negotiation costs with the outside firm and a couple of other endeavors, and to the details I'll refer to the city attorney.
Mr. City Attorney, would you like to elaborate on it?
She answered it pretty well. If you have a specific question, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay.
I do.
Could I just for my own knowledge, this is what is anticipated, more money anticipated that you will spend for the fiscal year 2024 budget on contractual services?
Yes, and as it proceeds, we enter into labor negotiations using outside counsel, and sometimes going into budget season, we're not sure whether that will be needed, and it came to, I was directed to bring on outside counsel. In addition, we were directed to complete a project relating to legislative drafting. We hired an attorney to do that. And there are some other matters relating to real estate that we are supposed to be taking ownership of, streets mostly, in order to effectuate council purposes. Street and park, we have to take over a street. And Gibraltar, that's Jeremy's Way, and Gibraltar Road needs repairing, but we don't own the street, even though it's technically in the city. So we hired an outside survey and real estate firm to get us the proper description of those properties. So we need money to take care of that. So those are the three things that are included in that.
So just so that I understand the accounting, if you will, in the budget, the contractual services proposed for fiscal year 2024, you have it 170,400, correct? And then, so this is asking for an additional 199,200 to that line item, contractual services?
Yes, and I can tell you, the majority of that, 160,000, is for the union negotiations. We don't know how much time we're going to use there, but that was the maximum estimate that we wanted to include.
Okay, I'll turn to my colleagues. Alderwoman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Union negotiations. I understand that the contractor that we've used in the past, Mr. Silvestri, is no longer with us. Is the increase in cost for negotiations because we have a new contractor who's going to be our chief negotiator now?
No, we asked for this amount prior to securing a lawyer, an outside firm. And so thankfully, we should be saving some money. We may not spend all of that, but we kept the amount the same rather than adjust it. Basically, the first firm you mentioned was coming in at just above $600 an hour. And I thought that was too much to pay. And the firm that we have now is about $300 for the partners and less than that for one or two associates that might be helping from time to time. So we should see some savings in addition to managing the work of those attorneys. But because this is a negotiation different from the previous negotiation, which was only for a 2-year CBA. This will be for a 4-year CBA, and it's after COVID. We anticipate more negotiations, and so we wanted to maintain the amount that we had originally asked for, just in case we needed more time to negotiate effectively the entire CBA.
So you aren't needing an additional amount to cover the negotiator? You're going to keep the amount that's already budgeted, even though the cost for that person is going to be far less?
Yeah, no, let me clarify. We did not budget for an attorney to help with negotiations. I was directed to hire that after the budget had been established, and so this is the extra amount for that work.
So we did not budget for a negotiator in bargaining, even though we have done that for every bargaining cycle for the last, I don't know, since 2013, 10 years. Mr. Silvestri came on around then. But we did not put money in the budget for bargaining this year?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so Mr. Lyles, are you saying that you have sufficient funds or you do not?
I do not.
He does not,
Okay.
that's why we're part of this curriculum.
That's why we're asking for the supplemental appropriation.
Okay. And how much was in the budget previously for that position?
Well, when we hired Steve Silvestri in the past, the cap was 160 or there about 130, 140. So in anticipation of hiring that firm again, we put in for 160, and this is represents that.
Are you saying $160,000 for the total job?
For the labor negotiation work, yes.
Okay. And so part of this is the 160.
60.
So the other 30,000 is for rewriting the code
Yes.
and surveying for which properties are we
Jeremy's
talking about?
Way and Gibraltar Avenue.
Are they our properties?
Jeremy, no, neither is because of the way that planning
I'm sorry,
has.
say that again?
No, neither street is even though they're in the city, they're not owned by the city.
So they are city properties?
No, they are in the city, but they are not owned by the city. We have to undertake a quitclaim deed process in order to take the streets over and to do the work that the constituents on those streets have asked the city to do.
Okay. So we are going to have those street ends conveyed to the city so that we can
Correct.
do whatever we
One is
need
the
to
street.
maintain.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Mike Lyles, city attorney. With respect to the street end, that's Jeremy's Way. There's a street end, we have to take over the street in order to gain access and ownership of the street end. Gibraltar is a street off of West Street that goes down to Moreland. It has a lot of industrial, semi-industrial properties on it, but we never owned it, even though it's in city limits, and it's in terrible shape. We entered into an agreement with the adjacent properties to upgrade the street, but we can't upgrade it until we own it. So we're in the process. It's been a long process because there's only one firm that actually does this work in the region that we rely on and that others have relied on. So they're very, very busy, but we're almost at the end. What we need from them is a description of the properties to go into deeds. All the property owners will quit claim the streets to us, and then the city will undertake the work that they've requested.
And I assume then the businesses along Moreland are eager to have these turned over to city.
Yes, they are.
So we're paying for the surveyors
Yes,
out of this additional 30,000.
yes.
And I thought we had hired an attorney to work on rewriting the city code. Did we not?
We did. And that individual had a specific task to do relating to adequate public facility legislation in the code. That adequate public facility legislation was rewritten and brought before the council. Council passed it, and so that task is done. In order to do more requires more money, and then of course direction by someone in the administration for me to hire that person to do that work.
And I guess my last question is, when will we find out which sections of the code will be rewritten? I know there's been some concern on the council about decisions being made as to what portions of the code to rewrite.
We have not been given any further direction beyond what you've received and voted on.
Okay, and I swear it is the last question.
No, that's fine.
You said you were directed to take this action. By whom?
The administration.
By whom in the administration? Is this from the city manager, from the mayor? Can you give us some direction so we know who to ask questions of?
Well, we generally advise the city manager and the mayor.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't ask you a question, did I?
Oh, no, I mean, Alderwoman O'Neill?
Just a
Alderwoman
quick
O'Neill?
clarifying question. So we budgeted for
Sorry, Mike.
170. This SA is for 199. So if I'm adding those two together, the budget will now be 370,
What's the 170?
which is approximately
Contractual services.
almost $100,000 more than what
That's in the
was
budget.
utilized last year,
What is it for? I can't read what it says. Contract service.
right?
There's no breakdown.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just trying to figure out
So
numbers.
you're asking a question about what they actually spent in last year's,
Contractual service.
yeah, but I don't have that in front of me, so I don't know whether I can confirm that or not.
Well, you have
What are you looking at there?
the budget.
I was just looking at the budget book.
Okay, so those would have been projections at the time we did the budget book. So there may have been changes since then, but that would be what we would have projected they were going to spend in about February of last year. So,
Okay.
I can't answer off the top of my head. I'd have to have the system open in front of me to tell you what they actually spent.
May I follow up?
Yes.
Thank you.
From what Mr. Lyle said, contract negotiations services are not part of that. Did I misunderstand you?
No,
That 170,000.
so, yeah, so yes, and we didn't have union negotiations in '23.
Right.
So we didn't incur any of those costs in '23. And the new budget amount that's in there for 170 did not include anything for contract negotiations.
Okay, that's what I, thank you.
Could I ask about the use of a supplemental appropriation for this? One-time uses, we review during the budget cycle, so we can actually dip into that in the middle of a fiscal year? as a fund, as a transfer?
For one, if for necessary one-time uses, yes, and the reason I was comfortable using that for these is because they are technically one-time. If you're going to have a multi-year negotiation, multi-year contract, you won't need that every year. And these services for the code rewrite, that was also a one-time project, as well as the work that they're doing for Gibraltar Avenue and Jeremy's Way. So you can use those resources. During the budget process, there was somewhere around 500, 600,000 left unallocated. And then we have hopefully a layer to add in from 23 once the audited numbers are done. So we'll have some more back in there.
So the funds are there. I'd like to make a motion that before we take action on this, that we get a breakdown of this $199,200, I think, in full transparency, prior review of the city council.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
And I don't know if you got any details on it with your support. Sometimes the essay will come with some following pages.
Yeah.
Through Kalen.
Right.
But if you didn't get anything, I do have an email here that I can give you a copy of that has the breakdown, or the Office of Law might have something a little cleaner than this.
We could provide numbers orally right now if you want.
Do you want to accept them orally for the? Yeah, they'll be in the record, so I guess that's sufficient. What do you think?
Well, is there a problem with giving the data to support the essays to Kalen in advance of it coming to the committee?
No, so typically, there's more than one page for these, and it's Capri and Katie that give you that information. So if you didn't get the breakdown of this request for this particular essay, we have that available. It's just all I have here is an email with some highlighted amounts on it, and there's probably a little schedule that we could give you that's a little bit cleaner.
I didn't receive this essay from DocuSign. I had to get the cover page from
When you got,
finance.
okay, when you got the cover page, was there anything the following, just the one
Just
page?
this, because of the signatures and the dates that need to go on DocuSign for the essays and the FTs. So I'm not sure how that's supposed
Do you want to do anything oral, or you can have a copy of this, but it's not very, I wouldn't make it public, it's not that clean.
Want me to go get it?
No,
Okay.
no. There's a motion on the floor.
I'm going to second the motion that we will hold off on any recommendations until we have written documentation of the breakdown for the 199.
Okay, so logistically, the next Finance Committee meeting is in December. And this is providing the spending authority for the union negotiations that will hopefully start before that. So, it's just, there's a timing issue. We can tap into the existing budget and then consider this in December then?
I think the elephant in the room is we're having, or speaking for myself, a hard time understanding why the union negotiations were not anticipated in the budget. I find that hard to comprehend, but that's subjective.
Well, City Attorney Lyles referred to this. Since I've been here, we've done it twice, and going into it, there's some consideration whether the negotiation process would be handled by the Office of Law or hire an outside firm. And at both points, the time before, I don't remember if we had it in the budget initially or had to add it, but this time we decided not to put it in there because of that uncertainty, and then they decided to hire an outside firm again.
May I speak? I'm even more bewildered because I know that we have hired an outside counsel for 10 years or more.
Yeah, and the last time around, I know I had to get some of it out of my budget, and we used some of HR's budget as well.
And I am aware that we even spoke of the fact that we were going to be bargaining this year during the budget process. So I'm still not clear as to why we didn't make sure that it was covered in the budget. but
No, I mean,
I'm in
yes.
support of the motion.
Yeah, it's on the floor, so do I have a second? I
She
seconded.
did
All in
second.
favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. So what is it now that we're providing?
For multiple reasons, we want this breakdown in writing. You know, the other issue, and it's already a done deal, but just, you know, the city code, we need to understand that. You know, rewriting how much, whatever, just, and you know, we just want the backup.
Okay.
Well, may I ask, this should not stop negotiations. Negotiations should have started last month in October. So where are we? Mr. Lyles, where are we in negotiations?
We hired the outside firm maybe about 2 to 3 weeks ago, contracted with them. And so they're on the ground with us and working with the administration and my team in opening negotiations and reviewing documents, requests for information, and that, as well as helping with strategy sessions internally and internal meetings. We have yet to have our kind of first face-to-face with the unions. That's coming soon, but it's based on scheduling right now with several unions.
So it sounds like this is not going to delay the start of bargaining because you've already begun.
Yes.
In essence, you already.
Yes. We haven't received our first bill from the law firm yet, but when the bill comes, it will be due. The other
and we'll
amounts,
pay it.
the other amount, well, we'll only pay it if we have the money, but technically the monies, the $27,125 to Ms. Linda Schuett, that's an invoice that has yet to be paid. And then there's an amount for the $12,000 for the surveyors. We received that invoice and we'd like to pay that as well. So both of those efforts have been completed or ready to be completed, and the invoices have been received. The 160 is all prospective in that we anticipate over the course of time we'll spend something in the neighborhood of that amount, hopefully less. You know, we'll see how we go.
Thank you.
So are we able to use the original budgeted 170 to pay those first two invoices while we're?
Provided they haven't already been used, yes, we can tap into the existing budget and replenish it with this money, providing this passes.
And I would just add, Mike Lyles again, that our office is somewhat different than a lot of offices. It's almost like OEM or DPW with snow. You never know what you're going to get, and you got to spend it, but you budget as best you can. Other than the labor negotiations, we get a lot of tasks from the mayor, the city manager, departments, the council. We're involved in lawsuits that are not litigation, that are not covered by the self-insurance fund. We sue other people. We hire all kinds of contractors and others to do things. We also hire and manage the law firms that provide advice and counsel to the independent boards and commissions. And if the boards and commissions decide to take 3, 4, 5, 6 months to get an action done, the lawyers that we pay have to go to those meetings, they have to go to those hearings. And if there is an appeal of anything that they do, and right now we're involved in 4 of them, those law firms have to help us with the appeals because they were actually advising the boards and commissions. And so it's hard to some degree to say, this is how much the Office of Law is going to spend any particular year. We get things that we don't know happening that we have to deal with in court, transactional, out of court, and mostly the special projects that we're asked to kind of fulfill. Happy to do that. We're good at it. We get it done. But we may not have the money to do it, but we roll out when someone says, go get this project done.
May I?
Just to,
ahead.
but, you know, due respect, first off, I'm not going to apologize for us doing our due diligence, okay? That's it. And the other thing is that you have a list, Mr. City Attorney, of your fiscal year 2023 accomplishments, and it elaborates on what you just said, and and one of them was provided top-notch legal support to labor negotiation team in process. So you knew the extent of labor negotiation. You used the word provided a top-notch legal support. So that's why we're asking for a breakdown to have a top-notch legal support budgeted and then adding or almost doubling it for is just it is surprising. And then the other question I have is the Gibraltar and the Jeremy's Way, are those bills in, or is that anticipated cost?
Those invoices are in, ma'am.
They're in?
Yes.
Okay. So it's more reason why we need a breakdown, because to me on paper, it looks like you overran your budget X dollars and you're just putting in a multitude of reasons, and we need to know why, how, and to prevent it from happening again. Alderwoman Finlayson?
I'm through. The motion is passed.
Yeah, we're done.
Yes.
We're done. All righty. So we have legislation, 025-23. I might need help from Cynthia Reuter on this, but my understanding is that at the next city council meeting, this ordinance will be withdrawn because we found out legal review, it was not necessary for a pilot program. So my suggestion to my colleagues is that we either take no action or, vote it down, but I think the impression is no action. So do I have a motion? Is that correct? Okay.
Madam Chair, may I ask, there are two sponsors on this legislation. Is there concurrence?
Let me check and see if yes. Yeah. In fact, that was how it came up, because
Okay.
why is it so complicated? Blah, blah, blah. Thank you for that question.
Then we don't have to take any action.
Okay. So no action? Okay. So that brings me to the resolution. R47-23, if you remember, was at the time a companion resolution to that ordinance. But because of withdrawal of that ordinance, a substitute resolution, sort of an all-inclusive resolution is introduced, and this is our first look at it. And do we actually have the resolution here? Yeah, 47-23. So Cynthia, Ms. Reuter, this is the substitute, the one that we've seen. This is,
Yes, Cynthia Reuter, policy analyst.
thank you.
The Amendment 1, Tierney substitute, is the new version of the resolution.
And are we looking at it, though, on Granicus?
Yes.
Yeah, that's 47-23.
And that is the all-encompassing legislation to create the pilot program.
So there's that. Any
May I
questions?
ask what the changes are to create a substitute?
Well, what Cynthia does is sort of summarize that. We included all the requirements. We took some language from the ordinance because there is, ordinance is a code change, and this is not a code change because we don't know if we're going to end up actually doing this. And then the harbor master reviewed it again and changed the language from kayak racks to paddlecraft racks. And then it will include these fees, but the fees will be another resolution, if I'm correct. That's not included in this.
The fees are actually included in this one since it's an all-encompassing resolution. There was no need to update the fee schedule.
Okay, I'm looking at page 1 of.
It's number 3
Page 3.
Oh,
on page 3.
where's page 3? Of first reader?
No, of your amendment.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Right. Yes, I wrote this. Yes, we wrote this. Okay. So it is all-inclusive, again, on the premise that it is pilot. It's similar, well, we know it was similar, it's similar to how we did the pilot on outdoor dining on the street. So do I have any motion or questions?
Madam Chair, I asked the question about what was different.
Oh, I thought I said everything. Let me see.
So,
This is a substitute.
yes, the ordinance changed a bit of the code permanently to allow kayak racks at street and parks. So this resolution does not do that. Instead, it says it's a one-year pilot program. It includes the fees into the resolution instead of a separate resolution. And it changes the name from kayak rack to paddlecraft rack. So it can include kayaks, paddleboards, canoes, possibly.
So is this substituting the ordinance or a previous resolution?
It substitutes both.
It's a combo.
Right.
Well, I'm
No, I got it.
Mr. Lyles, maybe it's a legal question also. I see Ms. Buckland's going to answer too.
Well, just Vicki Buckland, Assistant City Manager. So there was an existing R47 that had a staff report and stuff like that. That staff report would then be essentially out of date. Although it's generic, sufficiently generic, it probably is still applicable. But so then I want to make sure I understand. So then the other ordinance goes away. It's just this one then.
Right, the ordinance goes away. The original resolution
Gets amended
is
to this.
swapped out with the substitute. The provisions are essentially the same, outside of the fees being included in the resolution and no need to change the city code to make it happen.
So my second question would be then, is it appropriate to put fees in our resolution and not in the fee schedule?
This is a one-year fee, not a permanent fee.
That doesn't change my question. Mr. Lyles, you call him Mr. Lyles.
The fact that it's a pilot gives the council its noted flexibility. The council, as the leader of the city, can do what it wishes to do. And I think what you're doing here is giving authority to charge a fee inside the pilot. And the pilot, in my view, and my humble opinion, implicates the temporary nature of it, whereas the fee schedule is one that would sustain absent a council vote. This is going to sunset at some point. And so you don't want to do something with the sustained fee schedule that'll sunset because you didn't have to go back in and unsunset it, right? So it's appropriate in this instance, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dickinson, did you want to weigh in on that?
No,
Oh.
I
Oh, okay.
So
Thank you.
now that I woke up on this, this actually is in response to our initial review where we were hesitant on approving any dollars because we wanted to make sure that it was self-sustaining or self-sufficient. And then if you look at page 1 of 7 of the Harbor Master Report, she did an extensive analysis of this, and you can see the fees are quite substantial. The other thing is that she does not want, unfortunately, to my constituents, she is very concerned about the safety of having one at the end of Prince George Street. So she does give location options at the bottom there. Back Creek, 4th Street, Amos Garrett, Cheston Avenue, and Shipwright. So that was an important revision as well. And, there was, at one point, we said it was big. It was like 20, and we don't need that. So she estimated a 12 paddle craft.
So for clarity, these are the only 4 or 5 locations where they may exist for the pilot.
And
Right.
yeah, and it was mostly safety concerns. And also that City Dock is going to create a little bit of a ruckus.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm good, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion to give a favorable recommendation. Oh, nope, it's not O25, it's R4723.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And thank you, Beth Bellis, if you're listening, for all of that research and analysis. And so next we have another resolution.
Madam Chair, can I
Yeah.
jump in for
Oh,
just
of
a moment on
course.
this one? R 5623 has not been introduced to the council yet. It was originally on Monday's agenda. We did not get full staff reporting in time, and so we pulled it off the agenda, and so it needs to come off this agenda too.
Okay, good to know. So we will not take action. I'm cheating and reading the staff report now. Okay, so thank you for that information, Ms. Reuter. So that's it for legislation. We have a general discussion by the finance director, if you want to give us an update, or anyone else in attendance. Jody?
Jody Dickinson, Finance Director. I forgot about this part. Nothing new to report. We are working very hard on getting the annual comprehensive financial report pulled together and audited. The auditors have started their work. We are pulling together the financial statements that go into it, hoping to have it done by the end of the calendar year. I don't know. It's a big task. It's a big undertaking, and there's lots going on right now too. So that, and not planning on doing a bond issuance this year. So because we have proceeds from the previous bond issue that we haven't used, so we're not likely to issue any more debt until next year. And that's it. Starting to ramp up for budget and getting ready for the meetings with the unions. So
Is the economic climate a factor in not?
no, not at all.
Okay.
If you remember, I've talked about issuing debt as we need it, not when we have projects in the budget. And so as long as I think I have enough bond proceeds cash to take us through the next year, I won't sell any debt. And when the time comes to sell, we'll have to decide if we want to do a short-term borrowing or a long-term debt borrowing. So I don't know what the climate will be, if the rates will continue to climb, or if they'll be a little more favorable in a year.
Any questions?
I do have a question, and maybe this is not for you, Ms. Dickinson, maybe it's for the DPW director. I had a question about street paving, and I think it would be helpful if we had a up-to-date, and maybe it's in the city manager's report, spending up-to-date, because I'm interested in how much we have spent thus far this year for street paving. I have some concerns about the streets that are on the list that was just sent to us about a week ago. Did you guys get that list?
Yes.
And whether we are using street paving money for capital projects. I know, for example, Eastport has, I think, a big capital project going on with all the undergrounding of Eastport, and not just, I'm not picking on Eastport, but we seem to not have regulars. I'm asking the question, I don't know. I just want to make sure that we are getting $3 million worth of street paving.
Yeah, the $3
every
million
year.
is used for the paving of roads. It's in a project by itself. If there are times when we try to coordinate our repaving efforts with BG&E, for instance, who digs in our right-of-way, and they help us by paying part of the costs. And then we come to you and we add that to the budget of the paving project so that we can spend more. We don't try to use our money to do their work and then have less for ourselves. We add to the total budget. And that may be coming soon because we believe they're going to bring us some payments for some of the work they're doing, but I do not know which areas it's for. But the detailed question about the streets and stuff, you'd have to talk to DPW about that.
Could we get an update on expenditures thus far for street paving particularly?
So I can go back to my computer and try to look up total expenses for street paving so far. But what I don't know is what's in the works and what other invoices might have been presented that haven't been processed yet. So we can prepare something for you that's more comprehensive and send it to you after the meeting.
Well, you could also ask the director to give you an accounting also.
Yes, and
Without you doing the work.
right. Well, it's partially information that we have in the system, and then on top of that,
Yeah.
The engineer that works on the repaving projects would give
Okay.
us the what's in process.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So when you answer Alderwoman Finlayson's question, just to make sure I have the right, is the budget, it looks like in streets, it's $4.3 million total? Is that, just so we know what,
I think it's
But the
3
budget-
million, isn't it?
that's why I'm, I don't know. There's a street budget summary, and there's salaries, contractual services, that, it might just be that, supplies and others, and capital outlay. So we just need to know what the total budget is that they're,
So I would appreciate knowing what you're looking at, because
budget.
that doesn't sound like our capital project page, so they might have given you some additional information that,
this is the budget, the operating budget, the approved operating budget, page 90.
oh, that's for maintenance, though. That's not for repaving. The repaving money's in the capital project,
That's what I was gonna
Okay.
say.
and it's $3 million a year.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good to know
And the
then.
CIP does have it for 3 million.
Yes, and they do repairs through their general fund budget, very minor repairs through their streets budget.
Readers don't work
Okay,
this.
thank you.
So you'll have that. When do you need it?
No, she'll get it to me, I'm sure.
All right, I think that's it for our agenda. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Nope.
Oh, we're not adjourning, we're continuing. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a commercial break, and then we're going to continue into a joint meeting. This is a little bit
Okay.
new to me, so we'll just go with the flow. thank you. Our recess, Finance Committee meeting is over. We're going to continue to our next topic, which is R54-23. I will turn to my colleague, who is Chair of the Transportation Committee, to introduce the topic as well.
Yes, Carmen does need to do roll call.
So I'd like to call to order the Transportation Committee meeting. It's now 4 o'clock on Wednesday, November 8th. For roll call purposes, I have Alderman Savage to my left and Alderwoman Rhonda Pendle Charles to my right, completing the 3 members of the Transportation Committee. Am I approving the agenda?
Do you need?
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
We have minutes from 9/13/23. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to our general discussion, we are in the process of a joint meeting with the Finance Committee and the Transportation Committee to discuss R5423, Noah Hillman Garage Parking Concession Agreement, for the purpose of starting an investigation into the problems with the Noah Hillman Garage Parking Contractor, finding solutions to eliminate the overly complicated parking fee payment system that's discouraging the use of the parking garage. So we're going to open up general discussion.
Thank you, Alderwoman O'Neill. At this time, I'd like the representatives who are here to sit at the table. I'd also like them to have a copy of the executed resolution. It is executed. It's signed by the mayor. It's the aforementioned R54-23 that was unanimously approved this past Monday night at the City Council meeting. I say that because it's a pretty big deal. And I just want to give you some background and then we'll open it up because I don't want to talk more than I have to. As you know, a resolution is an official expression of the opinion or will of a legislative body, and that is us. We represent our constituents, and that is the will of our constituents. The framework of this meeting is going to follow the resolution. And let me just say that this resolution was based on the frustration, obviously. It was initiated in October. And also it was to emphasize that the financial aspect of this operation is very important, as you all know. And it's very frustrating for the City Council because we were not involved in this negotiation. You are a third-tier contractor. It's similar to having, a squatter in your apartment and you can't kick them out. Perception is reality in this case, and the perceived operation of the garage is complicated and has burdened the city with unnecessary action at our cost, and it continues to do so. And also there is a burden on the residents in District 1 and 2. Now, the framework of this meeting is to discuss the garage. We will open it up to public testimony so you can hear the other concerns of the residents who have been dealing with this and have been told they have to deal with this for the next 30 years. Okay? So with that, I will open it up to my colleague, Alderwoman Finlayson, or Alderman, if you'd like to comment before we...
Well, could we get introductions first? Introductions from everybody?
Introduction, yeah. Let's get you guys to introduce yourselves in your capacity, yeah.
Chester Escobar. I am the Vice President for Operations for Premium Parking, and I oversee the East Coast for premium.
Brendan Bodensteiner, Premium Parking Market President.
What was the title?
Market President
For Maryland.
Market President.
for Maryland, yes.
Hi, Ivan Doolan with Amber Infrastructure, representing Annapolis Infrastructure and Resiliency LLC, which is the manager of the project on behalf of Medco. I was also the one from AMRP that led the development of the garage and the project. So welcome this opportunity to address the very valid concerns.
Thank you all for being here.
A clarification, in our staff report or background from the staff report, it says that Premium is contracted with AIR. Is that you? That AMRP is equivalent to AIR? Okay. I think what we also want to start with too is how did this evolve? Like, how were you contracted? And what was the scope of work at the time?
Right. So the way the project is structured is that Medco is the city's counterparty under the concession agreement. That is a customary role for Medco to play as an entity that is looking to facilitate economic development in different public projects in Maryland. In AIR, for shorthand, is the manager for Medco, i.e. the ones that are actually overseeing the project and managing the project on behalf of Medco. We had the equivalent role throughout the construction process, where we oversaw the construction of the facility, and now continue under an equivalent contract for the operational phase of the facility.
So who does Premium report to?
Premium reports to AIR and Medco, and also the city.
Since this is a fact-finding, per the resolution, this is a fact-finding effort. We understand, if it's okay with my colleagues, that you have a presentation, apparently, and you did watch the Monday night city council meeting, so you heard some of the public testimony. Unless there's objection, would you prefer they do the presentation first, and then we'll open it up to? Okay, you can proceed with your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Chester, before
Yes.
you do, if we'll provide a little bit of, I won't. I've unfortunately probably bored the city council members with too many slides before, so I won't throw up any more. But provide a little bit of background and context for what Premium will present, kind of on a very more operationally specific. So starting a little bit higher, and then we can go down into the details. So the intent of the project was to provide the city with a new modern parking garage, as well as provide funding for the City Dock project, improve the efficiency of the overall parking system, and reduce impacts or traffic impacts from parking, circling around, trying to find space, et cetera. And also through all this to increase the number of overall parking spaces within the downtown area. So as we sit here today, I'm happy to say that the construction of Hillman was done ahead of schedule and under budget. The model that we've used for this has become a nationally recognized model. The project has already won awards for the structure that was used here and the innovation that was put together. Over $20 million was raised for the city from the project. We've, subject to the final design of City Dock, we're looking at between 40 and 50 net additional spaces downtown, even with the introduction of the coming park. We've also reduced some of the backup that we've previously seen, particularly around the big events, in and out of the garage of people literally queuing in the garage to get out. And I'm also happy to report, as we sit here, currently the project is performing right according to the baseline that we had going in from a revenue perspective and also a visitations perspective. However, that being said, there are still issues that are very real and important for us to solve. Frustration around parking, we want to alleviate as much as that as we possibly can, and fully recognize that some of the rollout here in startup, particularly of the garage operations, has not been ideal. So we're very much here to listen, take in feedback, and see how we can improve the operations of the garage. But I do, again, want to emphasize that both from a visitation standpoint as well as revenues from the overall parking system that is part of the concession agreement scope, we are performing according to where we should be.
Let me just ask this, because you opened it up. As far as performance, I look at, when you look at an operation, there's the product and there's the process and the people.
Yep.
What would you score yourself right now? And of those three categories, the product, if you will, and the process and the people, where do you think the failure is?
Candidly, I think some of the failure that we've seen is a combination of things. There have been a rolling set of changes for good and for bad with the change to the residential permit parking that was always going to have some complications rolling out something new. There was then the disruption with the parking garage. I think overall, though, how the system performed during construction is above and beyond what people feared and expected. We've had some issues when it comes to the initial startup of the garage and things that candidly shouldn't happen. It's never going to be 100%, but we are working to improve that. And I think, and the data shows that that improvement is being felt and noticed among the users of the facility.
You ready to start?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ivan. So the first thing that I want to say is that I'm disappointed that we're here to talk about the deficiencies that we're having. With everything that you all have going on in your city, this time is something that could be put to other use. So we hold ourselves to a higher ground or a higher level of performance, and we'll continue to do that. This presentation, I want to preface it by telling you this is not to downplay any of the issues that we've had, but I think you as a committee need to understand what we measure in the garage. And I think you also need to understand what is the information that we have readily available so that when you're going through this process, you can ask us this information. So what I'm going to put up is information from the users. So when you had, in the past, gated systems, you really didn't have much in the way of tracking the feedback. But in this particular case, because they are they're having a conversation with our platform, we actually do ask for feedback on an ongoing basis. Every call that we get into our call center is also tracked, and we have KPIs that you'll see when we put up here. Now, this information, you're going to see graphs and you're going to see a summary of the KPIs, but we'll be more than glad to give you all the backup for this information as the time, as the request comes in. So that's it.
Should we save the Should we save the questions to the end? I would.
I think so. I think I'm going to run through this as quickly as
Yes,
possible,
please.
and then we can go from there. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is where in other places in the country we're at. And I'm not going to go through them, but these are just some of the municipal partners that we have throughout the country. As far as garages that work the same way in a gateless facility, in Baltimore alone, we have 12 garages that are working exactly in the same format that you all are doing here. That is equivalent to 3,492 spaces in the state of Maryland. And these are all locations that are operated by us. These are our national partners throughout. City of Mobile is a cruise terminal. So we even handle cruise terminals. We handle large, like Sono for Brookfield. That's a retail center with over 3,000 spaces. We've got 950 locations. Just to give you some perspective on that, the largest company, the largest parking operator in the country right now is about 4,100 locations strong. So we're at 950 locations, and we're growing at a rate of about 25 to 30% a year. After COVID-19, we have seen a accelerated growth because of their technology that we're able to offer. These are some of the topics that I want to discuss. Payment channels that we offer, and all of this is in regards to the Noah Hillman Garage, period, because we did read your resolution, and the resolution was pretty specific. So the signage improvements we're going to talk about, Net Promoter Score, I'll explain what that is, repeat user data, and new initiatives, things that we want you to consider, things that we've been working on that we want to discuss with you going forward. First of all, the payment channels that you're able to take at the garage, you've got Camera Pay. So Camera Pay is when you take your phone, just like when you go to a restaurant, and you put your camera and there's a QR code. That's the first form of payment. Text to pay, you text a number and it gives you a link, and we can go ahead and take payment through there. Both of those do not require you to download our app. So that is pretty advantageous for someone that doesn't want another app on their phone. Then we've got the premium app. Then we've got the kiosks. So when all else fails and they want to use the kiosk, they can. And the last one, which is not here, is Park Mobile. So Park Mobile is what you have on the streets. So we do have the ability to take payments of Park Mobile at the garage. Then you can call customer service and our website, and we can help you that route as well. This is the Camera Pay workflow, and I won't bore you with it, but it basically takes you down the path of what you need to do. On the fourth step, you go ahead and you enter in your license plate, and then you set the duration, and you review and pay. When you download the app, this is very, very quick of a process. It takes no more than it's within seconds. Again, this is for Noah Hillman Garage. So far, year to date, this is how people are paying the revenue into your garage. 62% of Camera Pay, that does include our app. 29% of the people are using Park Mobile, and 9% of the folks and 9% of the payments are coming in through the pay station. One of the things that we
new
I'm sorry, I have to go back
Yes.
to that. Where's your premium app in that?
62%. It's
That's
part of the camera
camera.
pay,
Okay.
yes.
Got it. Yep,
So the 62% takes into consideration the people that do text to pay, the people that do camera pay, and the people that have our app. And we can give you, as we go along, we can give you more information, whatever details you want of this, we can supply, whatever you like. So signage improvement was something that we knew we had to do as soon as possible. There was confusion. There was an issue with people not understanding, how to pay. There was a lack of signage. So we came in and we changed all the signage and we put up some pretty detailed signage. Also, we worked hand in hand with the city parking department to give us their feedback. And honestly, they had some invaluable input in this. Net Promoter Scores is something that is used throughout the country by a lot of service industries, restaurants and so forth. We don't ask you to rate us. We ask you, how likely are you to recommend premium parking? That's a way different question than saying us, how do you rate the experience? And we ask you to give us from 0 to 10. And we do this at the end of each transaction through our platform. This is how the Net Promoter Score is calculated. And this is not our calculation. This is the calculation that needs to be used in order for you to publish a Net Promoter Score. Basically, a Net Promoter Score is equal to the percentage of the people that score you from 9 to 10. The people that score you 7 to 8 are passive. You cannot use those scores. And the people that score you 0 through 6 are what we call detractors. Those are the people that had a bad experience. So that's how you get to a Net Promoter Score. The Net Promoter Score has, I think we could ignore the 100% because it's just November. We've only gotten 2. But the Net Promoter Score was at its lowest in August at 11, 22 in June, 20, and then in September 21, the sign package was put in towards the end of September, early October, and we did see a very nice increase into 30. Apart from this, you've got letters that you could see there, or words that are being used as feedback, because you do have the ability to give us some feedback. We will give you all of this for the month of October so you could see this on an ongoing basis and you can see the actual scores for you. But this just gives you an idea. We don't edit this. This is something that comes out and you could see that, a lot of it is pretty blunt in what they tell us. Now, we're not selling pumpkins. We're selling parking. People don't necessarily like to pay for parking. So a Net Promoter Score of 30 is actually one of the best that we have throughout our 950 facilities. Our support center, when people call our call center for any issue, everything is tracked. And we did see a huge spike in August, and then we see it come down. This is FD is fresh desk tickets, so everything is documented as it comes in through our customer support. We have calls, we even have chats. Chats meaning that when people do text to pay, we can chat back and forth with them. So we keep track of everything, including the emails.
Just a quick question. Is this just for our garage?
This is for NOAA only. Yep. Now, great question, because the next one is for everywhere.
all the other locations, or our entire operations here at the city of Annapolis. The total phone calls we've received is 5,073. Total answered were 4,870. Total missed because they went into voicemail, whether we took too long to answer the call or so forth, was 203. And then the net, or the answer rate, was 96. The average wait time was 24 seconds. So you can read this. First call resolution is 88%. This is from July through November. We just pulled this report, and this is for all operations. So your residents' calls are in here. This is, and I won't read these, but these are some of the calls we've received. Now, I don't want to make it seem like this is representative of satisfaction of our system, but it's just giving you some examples of the good calls we've received. But it just gives you an idea of some of the things that we've been able to do. So repeat users. Repeat users tracks, because now you're entering a license plate, you can track this in your system. So the top tells you the repeat users by the week, meaning how many people come back week to week. And that's about 23%. The bottom one is 38%, and that means that if someone just came here one time and they come a second time, that counts as a repeat user. This is not monthly parking or subscription, as we call it. This is transient. These are your visitors. Some of the new initiatives that we want to propose. Number one, we think we would like to offer a mystery shopper program. This would be a national surveyor, and having a survey designed with city staff. So sit down with city staff and say, what do you want this secret shopper to evaluate us on? The ease of use of the app, the cleanliness of the garage, whatever you'd like us to do, we go ahead and do. But I think we should do that. We should do that on a monthly basis, or more intervals. We are bringing in an analyst to work with staff. The analyst is going to work closely with me. Her name is Jaquette Benson. She's going to also work on an SOP and process improvement with us. So we're adding some infrastructure to this to try to get our arms around this. She's an MBA, and she will be dealing with us directly. Special event coordination has to improve. It's got to get better. We cannot have people going up the garage looking for spaces when there aren't any spaces. So we're aware of that, and we need to do a much better job. This next part, I think, is the most important. We own this app. This is our app. We own the code. So what I would like is, because settings like this, although wonderful for some part of it, I would like to have 5 or 8 representatives of your Ward 1 and 2, have them in a room with our folks from our product department, and let's go through the issues that they're having. I think the majority of the issues are coming, and this is on the residential side, are coming from the temporary decals or the temporary use for visitors. That's a quality of life issue, and we know it. We understand it. So everything else that we just talked about, Noah Hillman, is looking like we're getting better. But this is not a success until we minimize some of the quality of life issues that we see. And I think that the way we get to this in good faith is by having a residential and then a merchant focus group with whoever you all want us to have there. But we're willing to put, I report directly to the president of our company. He's aware that I'm here today. And I also have a dotted line to the owner of the company, our CEO. So we're here in good faith to do whatever we need to do to make this right.
Clarification, what do you mean by, quote, "we own the code," end quote?
The code of our app. In other words, this is our app. We're not using a third-party app. We're not using a Park Mobile would be a third app or a third-party app. We use our own app for the permitting side of things. So the promo codes, which I know are somewhat, frustrating, all that is what we do.
I'm sorry, colleagues. The $1 million question is why? Why?
Why do we own it?
Yeah, why is it, it's like a proprietary thing? Why is that?
Because it's all under one network. So I think it's a plus for you all that we're able to make changes that will, without having to ask anybody for permission.
Okay, we'll get to that in public comment. Yeah.
Working with the Downtown Ambassador Program, and then increase communications all throughout. I think I will stay engaged until I see us moving in the right direction or what have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open it up to questions by my colleagues. Who was first? Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you. I have several questions. I appreciate the slides and the data, something that we've been asking for a while, so that's helpful. I appreciate that. My first question is going to be, you own the code. There has to be a better way than a 14-digit 2-hour free parking code that I have to put in every single time I go into the garage. And if my daughter parks because she's meeting friends for lunch, I can then not use that. To me, that seems an unfair process. If it's two different people parking two different cars, it should be attached to the driver or to the license plate number, I think. There's probably some monetary reason for that. And if you want to explain that, that would be great. But the 14-digit code is crazy. To many people, it feels like it's so cumbersome that they just give up. And that's what they say is your purpose of it, so that they just give up and don't use it.
For what motive?
So that they don't get free parking. So they're getting parking.
No, there's...
Maybe I can just add some context. I think when it comes to whether or not the residential code or the 2-hour free parking is tied to a vehicle or tied to an individual is very much kind of within city council to direct like how we do that. We are operating on the effectively moving. Digitizing what was previously the different slips. That being said, one of the things that we saw when it came to the use of those validation tickets was that a lot of them were misused. Like there was an abuse of that benefit, which directly hit naturally the city's bottom line. Like nobody sitting here, nor Medco, derives any benefit from those user or the 2-hour free parking actually being used by the citizens of Annapolis. That is absolutely what was assumed, that it has been baked into all the models. So I think on this point, it is one, as Chester mentioned earlier, about how do we make that process as smooth as possible for residents while still keeping some of the benefits that we collectively look to of making sure that that public good is not misused as it had been in the past.
I appreciate that. It's the first time we've heard that city council would have the ability to make that change, so I appreciate that. It would be nice.
That was news. That's news to us.
You know, for 14 plus months, we pushed everybody, actually more than that, to use Park Mobile because that was the direction we were going in. And then all of a sudden the new garage opens up and there's all these different apps, and I actually can't use my 2-hour free on Park Mobile. It's only on the premium parking app. That's something that we should be making more clear to people. I had a long email from a resident today who came in, diligently got her premium parking code, you know, her 2-hour free parking code, put it in, couldn't make it work because she was using Park Mobile. And there was fine print on the email that she received last week when she applied for it that said only to be used on premium parking app. But it's not very clear if you're standing in the garage that you've recalled that email that's about this long. So anything that we could do to streamline that, I know that you've changed some of the signage, and maybe we can do a better job of marketing to people that if you are using the 2-hour free code, hopefully it doesn't maintain the 14 digits. Maybe we move into something that's connected to a license plate. I would think that connecting it to a license plate would solve the problem of misuse, because I used to get 10 tickets, and if I wanted to give one to my mother visiting in town, I could, but only if she was driving my car could she technically use that parking pass. So I think that takes away some of that misuse of people sharing tickets with non-residents.
Understood.
Let's let them go. I had one, I had a resident that I had to talk down off the ledge because they paid for 2 hours, their dinner was taking longer. And I said, oh, if you're using the app, you can just extend, and it'll tell you, it'll pop up on your phone that your time is about to expire. I actually witnessed, not in Annapolis, but I witnessed in Baltimore yesterday, and I screenshotted it. I parked in Baltimore from 8:30 to 10:30. I paid for 2 hours. I actually didn't use all 2 hours. I left. 8:30 last night was when I received the email that my parking was about to expire. 8:30 last night, it's timestamp. So I would, if I had stayed over my 10:30 finish time, I maybe would not have known, because my time is about to expire message didn't come to me until almost 12 hours later. So I have heard from other residents that they don't get the messages, and I'm wondering if they're witnessing the same thing, even though mine was in a different garage. I wanted to throw that out there because I see that Brendan's taking notes. Last 2 weeks ago, we had a problem with the kiosks being down, especially the one here on Duke of Gloucester. Is that something that you're getting notification of, that they're down digitally, or how are we taking care of those?
Yes, so we've identified some of the reoccurring issues. We've literally replaced most of the components in there, and we've got a couple of more troubleshooting. We've seen some consistency now, but we've got our eyes on those, and if we've got to go further into making an adjustment, we will.
Thank you. That's all I have at this moment.
Thank you. Could I just expand on this, the coding, et cetera? Let me just try to dumb it down. Forgive me. What is the software that you use to operate the gateless system?
It's our own Glide Parks.
Okay. I've talked to our other parking manager, and they're really they're expert at all this, and I understand the gateless system is the wave of the future. I also understand that there is multiple apps nationally that are used, like text to park or whatever. My concern is with I read that in, I think it was in Reading, Pennsylvania. One of the complaints, the biggest complaint I get from the garage is that they have to say how many, they have to pay when they get in. You know, it's like a giant meter, if you will, you know, that's the model. It's like a giant parking meter, you know, okay, I'm going to stay for 2 hours, and then they exceed and they get a ticket and all that. I understand that Park Mobile has the opportunity to pay at the end. They have that in their system. So again, it brings up the question, why aren't we using a universal payment system? And also the fact that we use it on the streets. Is that what you meant when you said the city council has the opportunity to change that? Because that would be a preferable change that we'd like to just standardize it to Park Mobile, which is something universal. Although I see your data coming in that it's 29% use Park Mobile, but I think that your program is limiting the capabilities, especially, you know, this thing about being able to pay when you exit.
I'll take a first stab at answering the issue regarding paying when you enter or paying when you leave. Pretty much all gateless parking garages, you pay when you arrive, not when you leave. There is a possibility to change that, though. I will say that is a very, very heavy lift, because the way things are modeled, all assumptions are that the garage is pay when you arrive. One of the benefits of doing it that way is that violations tend to be lower as well. You tend to have candidly an increased revenue from transient users, which have been the assumption here all along. It's similar to what is done on street parking and other parking lots. The garage is just a parking lot that's stacked vertically. So fundamentally, there's no difference when it comes to how to operate a garage versus a parking lot, and kind of the assumptions that you use going into it. So I would strongly caution against doing that. That has a lot of knock-on effects. One of the reasons why we partnered with Premium on this project, and we partner with Premium on other projects in the US as well, is, as Chester mentioned, the flexibility to address different types of pay options, validation programs, residential parking permit programs. If you use a third-party vendor like Park Mobile, some of that is possible to do, but it tends to take longer and be more difficult, and you don't have as much access, or the city wouldn't have as much access to the underlying data.
So factually, I can send you this, that according to this article about the gateless entry at the Reading, Pennsylvania garage, Park Mobile is able to provide a version of their software that allows people the option to pay at the end of their stay in addition to at the start. And I appreciate your transparency about sort of, you know, you profit by this hedging, if you will. Well, I didn't stay the entire 2 hours, but I'm still paying for 2 hours. I appreciate that transparency, but did you ever entertain the idea that if you make the garage more user-friendly, you might have more users that would contribute to their revenue? Have you evaluated that, the pros and cons?
Yes, and to be clear, like the city ultimately is benefiting from the increased revenues that the garage produces. So this is for the city's overall benefit. So when I'm not saying that it's not possible to do, my point is very simply that there's a reason why most garages that are gateless do not operate with a pay when you exit.
Okay, thank you.
So the only thing I want to add to that is that we do have a begin session and end session as an option. So let's say you come into the garage, there's on the rate table, there is an option that says, I don't know how long I'll be here. So you start your session, you go do what you need to do. When you come back, you stop the session, and that's it. Now, as far as your comment about if you only stay a portion of it and you get charged still for a different rate band, that's how the GOTS garage is. So if you go into the GOTS garage, it's $3 up to 1 hour. And then it's $6 up to 2 hours. If you leave an hour and 30 minutes, you're going to be charged $6. So that's no different than how the other garages within the city work. Thank you.
My last question. When you said we run this like all those other garages, are you doing the same exact model for all the other garages? Or is Hillman different?
Every single one of them we do. The only difference, well, let me back up. What I mean of we operate them in the same fashion is without gates. So they are all gateless. This is unique in the sense, well, no, we have other ones that we also provide Park Mobile as a payment option as well. So we do have them, throughout. We have an open architecture in the sense that the pay stations are also feeding into our platform. That's the reason why you can get the data that we have.
Alderwoman Pendle-Charles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one question, and I want to make sure I lead up to this correctly. You all have 950 facilities throughout the United States?
Yes, ma'am.
And you indicated that the city provided you some invaluable input regarding the signage. Is that because we've got a crackerjack transportation department, or we're very unique, or what we had was beyond your capabilities that you figured out?
No, I think it's more of the feedback they were receiving directly from the residents. So they shared that with us, and then we sat down and we designed it with them.
So our residents were different from any of the 950 you got before. You couldn't use any of the signage, say, suggestions that you had in other facilities when it came to us?
I think the one unique sign is the one that has the one with 3 payment options. That's the one that has resolved a lot of our issues.
And that came from us?
Yeah, I mean, it was.
So we're unique?
Yeah, you're definitely unique. Absolutely. I've always said that. I mean, one of the things that'll come up is, is this the only residential program that we have? I could tell you we have other types of residential programs throughout the country, but this one is unique, and I've always said it. I don't compare you all to anywhere else. I appreciate the fact that we're here. I appreciate being associated with the city of Annapolis, and we take a lot of pride in what we do. We're a small company, and but we don't have bureaucracy. We get things done, and that's why I said it at the very beginning. I'm disappointed that we're here. I want to get past this as quickly as possible.
So we have unique residents as well?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, and we appreciate that, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you for coming out this evening. So I do think, first of all, I do think a couple of the suggestions you had are great ideas. The focus group, great idea, as well as the SOP development. What's the timing on those?
So the focus group, you all let me know, or I guess we'll work with the city on coming up with the focus group. We're ready to meet, whenever you guys tell us, because I think that's really, really important in a different setting, taking it out of this setting and getting to work on some of the things that we need to get done. So that's a timeline. The SOP timeline, we can probably, I would say, no more than 30 days for the first draft. Then there's a lot of input going back and forth with the city, and then probably about 60 days so that we can have a finished product.
Okay, well, I'd like to point out, we have the holiday shopping season coming up. When is Holiday Madness usually Midnight Madness downtown?
December 7th is the first.
7th. So I think we really need to get some key things done before that, because frankly, I don't think you need the headache we don't need the headache, and more importantly, the public doesn't need the headache. That is a really key time when that garage is going to be used, not to mention the General Assembly is going to be starting up in, what is that, February 1st or?
January.
Oh, January, sorry. So those are a lot of key dates there, not to mention New Year's. So I think we need to get some key things improved by then. And that's mostly going to be, I think, geared towards tourists, right? Those visitors. But the question about the residents, I think those also are very important to deal with. But I think if we need to prioritize anything, I'd say kind of getting some of the visitors downtown. Although no, I take that back actually, because the residents will also be coming down quite a bit for shopping on those dates. So I think it would be good to get that sorted out as far as the 2-hour free parking. So how is that something you can make? Because the suggestion that was mentioned here, and I think we received it over testimony, of having that 2-hour, the 2-hour limit, but having that be validated through license plate reader. Is that something you can implement fairly quickly using your software, your app?
I think, we'll address also the Park Mobile situation, so I'll let Brendan, because I think he's been working on that for some time.
Can you repeat the question just so I understand it clearly?
Yeah, just wondering if, first of all, I guess, do you agree? Because it seems to me, but again, I'm not a parking professional, but it seems to me, based on what we've heard, that it'd be a good idea to go towards the license plate reader, utilize that technology for verifying whether or not somebody's a resident and utilizing that 2-hour free parking. So do you think that's a good idea, first of all, as the parking professionals?
So it is a great idea, and it is the direction of the parking industry. However, there are still hardware, software, and environmental challenges. So to depend on that would actually impact the end user experience right now.
Right.
I mean, you're going to easily get 10 out of 100 reads wrong in a credential environment like that. Bike racks, mud, sunlight, some of the things we can't control, in addition to, certain customary plates not reading well. The hardware technology is just not there yet to be the end-all, be-all credentialing system, but absolutely is headed in that direction, as well as tolling over time.
Mm-hmm. And, okay, is that something that you can, the other question is that something you can implement fairly quickly to start utilizing the plate reader to do that?
I think we're at the mercy of the hardware developers. Again, the best read rates you're getting anywhere in the country are about 97%. So we do have great read rates here. We are at the 97%, but that's still getting 3 cars wrong out of every 100, which we just don't see as an acceptable solution. We can certainly try. I can work with my product team. We can see if we can roll out a pilot program and test it. Our fear, our hesitancy has always been that we are not, the hardware, the cameras actually reading plates confidently. It's just not close enough to 100% yet.
Yeah, and I'll just add that technology has to serve the purpose of respecting the policies in place. So we've got to take the policies that are in place that were issued to us, and then we apply those to the technology that's readily available to us. And that's what we were able to do. We can, the resolution talks only about Noah Hillman Garage, so we weren't ready to talk about what we can do. That's why I'm asking for some type of a, focus group, but we'll take that into consideration. But I don't want to sit here and tell you, let us take a look at it. I would like to have a comprehensive plan to this instead of saying this would be a good idea, that would be a good idea. But there's some things that we can do right away, and those are the things that I want to identify and start doing them. Go ahead.
If I may, I think one thing that we are seeing is an overall improvement in user satisfaction. That is, again, that is not to say that everything is great and there are no issues, but I'd be very hesitant to kind of jump into a completely new system as kind of the existing one is taking hold. I think these are the type of issues that we're more than happy to discuss and review and see if there's if something like a smaller pilot program for certain residents would make sense to kind of before we switch like tack hard left or right on it.
Well, all right, so there are two questions out of this. The first, I guess, on the garage. So is there any kind of free parking period for residents in the garage, like your first 1-2 hours in the garage?
So there is the resident 2-hour parking achieved through the codes. And there is also free parking Sunday mornings. I believe that it is you must enter after 6 a.m. and leave before, it's either 12 or 1 p.m. And that's action free. You're not going into the app on Sundays to validate yourself for that.
So you get 2 hours in the garage, but only if you put the code in.
Correct, and that's only for City of Annapolis residents.
Right. Well, so I mean, when you sign in for the app, you take a picture of your license plate that's associated with the account, right? And you have our address, so you know whether or not we're city residents. So you're saying you can't rely on that 100% because the camera technology is not at 100%.
That's correct. That's correct. So essentially, there's probably going to be 3 errors out of every 100 cars for whatever reason. A bike rack, mud, just a bad angle. They took a sharp turn going down the wrong way. We did not get a good read. The driver will not know if the system gave them a good read or not, so they wouldn't know to take a secondary action to use a code as backup if the read rate failed.
But so what? I mean, if you get the failures, that's not harming the resident, right? You get a little less revenue because you don't know who to bill, but it would at least allow the residents, those who can get verified, to not have to worry about getting charged the max rate.
So the system you're talking about is a tolling system. And the tolling system is not what we have in place here. Our system requires you to engage with the app right now, today. So the tolling system is you come in, a tag is read, okay? Mm-hmm. And then the time starts ticking for your session started without you having to do anything. When you leave, so our system is not set up today that way. You come in and you have to engage with our app and put in your information.
I mean, the technology's out there. We just had a presentation on the committee from another company, and this is more geared towards, I guess, we didn't realize, but it's more geared towards public safety. And I can't remember the success rates they had in that, but it's certainly out there. They use it, the police use it for all kinds of things.
Technology's there. I'm just being extremely transparent and telling you that that's not how it's set up here. And that's something that we don't have readily available today. We don't have a tolling system today.
But you do for people who have membership. They pay I mean, that's for the council, right? We drive in and out. Somehow it's us, right?
Yeah, that's monthlies. In other words, that's subscriptions.
But why can't you do that with the dailies if you do with the monthlies?
Like I said, we can take a look at it a little deeper, but I think specifically right now, that's not in place. We can discuss it going forward, but it's not in place right now. That's what I wanted to make sure of. We were, again, and I keep going back, we came to answer the questions on the resolution.
I know, but that's directly related to the garage.
It is, but it was the ease of use, not necessarily changing our platform or changing the methodology of tolling.
Well, I don't understand why it would be such a drastic change if you're already doing it for monthly users.
We can,
Should just be software tweaked to say, I mean, it's the same technology, you're just.
Sorry, one of the differences is that when you do sign up to be a monthly user, you provide, like, there's a sign up process. I think the question is would there be an equivalent sign up process for everybody who wants to take advantage of 2-hour free parking, or just by DMV registrations? Like, there are different paths to go down. And again, I can't stress this enough. We're very open to kind of exploring ways to make this process simpler. I just, again, want to caution of, I don't think we want to sit here and say, yes, we will definitely do that, or definitely do this. We want to start the dialogue and then see where we can get to with the technology and make sure that the implementation of any change gets rolled out smoothly and efficiently, so we avoid some of the issues that candidly we've had to date.
And I would go on to say, like, you do have to register, you have to sign up and give your driver's license number and your address when you want that 2-hour free 14-digit passcode. I think what we're asking is there a way, if I've registered, I go in, I pull up the app and I say, M142789 Maryland plate has entered the garage, and it should be able to pop up and say, are you ready to park your 2-hour parking? Or, oh, I'm sorry, Karma, you've already used your 2-hour parking today. Should we use your premium parking app to go ahead and pay for your next hour, 2-hour, whatever? I think that it could be simplified and not the toll process. I'm going to add to that because I received a text from somebody who's watching, and they were saying that because you're trying to estimate how much time you're going to be in the garage when you're initially paying, and you get that, hello, Karma, you're now paying for parking, and it has the ticker down when you receive it on time. She's asking if there could be notification built into the system that says you've now left the garage, so that I know for a fact that there's not a mistake. I've paid for 2 hours, I've left in 1 hour and 45 minutes, and premium parking sends me a notification that says your car has now left the garage, so that it technically stops the countdown, but it would also give a little bit of insurance to people to know that they're not going to be billed or whatever the case may be. It might deter car thefts too, because we learned last night they're growing. If I get a notification that my car's left the garage, I know it's not me.
That two-way communication, I just need to confirm if that could be, if that could be done.
If that could just be thrown out there as a, thank you.
I had a question related to that, if I may continue a little bit. Because that was my other question, one of the other big concerns, which happened to me actually before we had the monthly passes. I wanted to try it out, so I signed up. I don't know if this is still what happens, but what I noticed what happened is I put, when you sign up, you have to say how long you plan on staying. But if I wanted to stay, I think at the time, 2 hours for a council meeting, but I was here for a 3-hour meeting, forgot to update the app, and I just drove off. After the 3 hours, I was charged the full rate, $50, instead of just for 3 hours of using it. And is that how it's supposed to work? Because I think I've heard that from other people, that they're getting charged the maximum rate if they're just for going over their self-proclaimed limit, not the full max.
So that's actually all defined by code. So the ticket fines, those amounts are defined by the infraction. So when you do get ticketed, you're getting ticketed for not paying a meter or letting the meter expire is what it's called, which is a flat $50 nowhere. And I've not seen this on the commercial side either, where enforcement only bills for the portion of unpaid parking. The risk with that is, when I don't pay, I'm only going to be charged for as long as I park there. That encourages people to not pay and, essentially challenge the system to catch them or not. So revenues do drop. But again, all the fine amounts on the citations are dictated in a citation fee list in city code.
But I'm talking about the garage. So there's not a fine associated with the garage. It's just
The garage is in city property, so we have to follow whatever the code is in city
code
property.
doesn't say you have to charge $50 if you're just overstaying your.
It's just like the meter. It's just like the meters outside.
But that's okay. Well, I think you're treating that differently than I would envision, because if you're going to a garage that's, well, I guess it's different. With the ticketed garage, you're not. If you can stay as long as you want, you have to pay based on how long you stay.
Right.
In this case, you're not getting billed on how long you stay. You're getting billed on if you overstay your estimate, then you're getting billed automatically the max amount, which I don't understand, because if you utilize the license plate readers, you know when we enter and exit, so why not just charge us for the time that we're actually in the garage instead of the full?
So we treat the same, that's a policy decision, and we treat it the same way as if you were in a metered outside or inside the garage.
But there's nothing I'm aware of in the code that's saying you have to treat the garage as a metered spot. In my mind, those are two different things, because when I go to a parking garage, it says you're charged by the hour. If you stay 2 hours, it's free. If you stay over, the max daily rate, it'll say is $20. That max daily rate of $20 is not the fine amount, right? But you're envisioning this as a parking fine when it's more of a fee in my mind. It's a parking fee for the garage. I mean, it just seems a little odd to me.
Couple of things. Like we mentioned previously, the garage now operationally and a fee structure-wise is exactly similar to any of the other parking lots in the city. So if you've paid for 2 hours, it's 2 hours and 30 minutes, and parking enforcement happens to roll by, there is
for the parking spots, but not for the other city parking garages. Because again, the other city parking garages are the paper, and you only get charged for when you enter and leave.
Understand.
Right?
But what I'm talking about is Noah Hillman Garage functions now just like the other city. A parking spot. So,
but whose policy decision is that?
That was decided.
That's nothing we said.
That was decided as part of the assumptions going in and what was documented as part of the concession agreement process. So we spent a lot of time going through looking at where should rates be, what the parking policy should be, and effectively what we did is just continued with the same fundamental structure as has been the case previously when it comes to holiday parking, residential 2-hour free parking. The difference is this is a gateless system. So pretty much every single new parking garage that gets built gets moved to a gateless system because candidly, the economics are better from a parking standpoint. The folks that benefit from that economic uplift of going to a gateless system is the city.
But it's not really a gateless. Physically, yes, it's gateless, but it's a virtual gate, right? Those license plate readers are the gate, right? Because they take a picture when you enter and when you exit. So you can treat it effectively, procedurally, as a gate. That's the point. That's the confusion I have, because that's what I'm still envisioning this as a parking garage, not a spot. But so what you're telling me, I guess, does that mean that do we have to make a distinction in our code, the fee schedule, that says if we decide we want this to be treated as a parking garage, rated parking garage, we can make that distinction in our fee schedule to say this is going to be treated as a parking structure with a maximum fee based on hourly, whatever we do. But is that what you're saying we have to do in the fee schedule?
It's a fundamentally different approach to what the requirements are for how everything in the concession agreement is now set up. So yeah, it can be done, but there's likely to be some revenue impact associated with it. I can't tell you here right now what that is, if there is a way to make it revenue neutral or not. those are things that we can look at.
And I get your concern about revenue. We have a concern about that too, but our primary concern is we're public servants serving the public. So frankly, it may reduce revenue a little bit, but that's just because we're not fining people the maximum fine just for overstaying their parking for an hour. That's a reasonable thing to me, probably my colleagues too. So if that's what we need to do, and I'm willing to pass whatever we need to get a change, because I don't see the benefit if there's so much grief from the public and frustration on their end, having to pay. And that is my initial reaction when I did this, my first time parking in the garage. I was like, that makes no sense. I'm being charged the max amount when I'd only been there for 3 hours. It made no logical sense to me.
No, and don't get me wrong. Like I understand the frustration and the teething issues. That's one of the reasons why we also try to add a little bit of a ramp up process here. Mm-hmm. Clearly, we did not do a good enough job of how that was rolled out. But fundamentally, the structure that we're using here is similar to any other city lot. The difference is because there are defined entry and exit points, it's easier to do fee enforcement. Fundamentally, you could set up the same system on the entry and exit points on all the city parking lots. There could be a discussion about grace periods, et cetera. But like what we've tried to do is again to digitize the system to get better visibility into the use of different codes, so that it's clear that how the system is used. There's definitely been rollout issues that we've faced in going to this new system, but where the performance is trending, both from user feedback data and revenue, is that the system, like the parking system, is now performing more and more along the lines of what we expect it to.
Okay, they're leading. Yeah.
Alderwoman Pindell-Charles.
Something quickly. My understanding, you indicated 6 a.m. to 12 noon or 1 p.m. on Sundays is free. Is that because of the church?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, ladies.
In tag team.
I think it would have been extremely beneficial had we seen this presentation 6 months ago. To have a better understanding of the process used for our garage. I'll be very honest, I have not used the system. I pull in, and the first time I did, and I happened to have been out of town when the garage was open, so I didn't have the benefit of learning the process if we were ever, that was ever shared with us. But I just pulled in and I figured you guys will give me a ticket. I'll take it to the city manager's office and have it taken care of. So I don't know the system. I am pretty computer literate, however, and I do hear concerns from the community. And even having some of the slides that you shared with us today available to the community at large, or even to have an introductory meeting to say, come and learn how to move in and out of our garage, would have been extremely helpful, particularly the people who live in the immediate surrounding areas who are using it on a regular basis. I particularly liked your plans going forward, the focus group. And I would hope that the focus group would be made up of those very residents who are most, I don't want to say exposed, but having most impacted. Thank you very much for our garage. You're going to hear concerns from the community because that's what we do. You know, you opened your comment by saying something similar to, I don't know why you all are wasting your time doing this when you've got bigger issues. Well, all of our issues are big issues. You know, the small customer service concerns from our constituents are important to us, just like those other big issues you were referring to. So moving forward, when you hear the concerns from the community, I hope there's going to be a process where you can kind of categorize those concerns. You know, one might be technology or payments and that kind of thing. Another might be customer service, because we may be getting it all right, but people still don't feel good about it, you know? And maybe another might be contract issues. You know, I sent a message to Mr. Moore and Ms. Buckland before she left. How do we review the contract that you have? Are there no changes ever to be made in the next 30 years? I doubt if that's the case. So what's the process for making some of those recommendations that we're hearing from my colleagues this evening? What is the process going forward? And I hope you would be willing to take all this information and then come back and have a discussion about how we resolve some of the issues. I think some of the questions may have already been answered by your own presentation, but we should have a path going forward.
I'll let Ivan take the process, but the only thing I wanted to clarify is absolutely I did not think, or I didn't mean to say that you're wasting your time doing this. Absolutely not. What I meant was, I'm pretty sure you've got other things that you need to take care of. I'm disappointed that we're taking care of this because of our inabilities. That's all. So I just wanted to clarify that. No disrespect, and I appreciate your comments on the other stuff. I really do.
Thank you.
Yeah, just quickly on the concession agreement and changes. There's absolutely an ability to make changes under the concession agreement. There's a process set out for that. There's a process set out which has already been utilized when it comes to implement daylight parklets, the valet parking service, et cetera, and the city, like effectively the parking assets here are city assets. What the concession agreement does is it just sets out some parameters around how those will be operated in exchange for the issuance of the bonds that were raised, for which a good portion then went to the city to be able to pay for city dock. So within those parameters, yes, there's absolutely the ability to make changes, and we're in constant dialogue with the city and city staff when it comes to operational changes. Those can be big or small.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So are we?
Just a couple of things, because I don't want to see any other residents leave. I thank you for your patience. It's pathetic that I have to ask this question, but to springboard off of what my colleague Alderman Savage was asking, the city council can change the rates. But are you saying the concession agreement is off limits, that they're established elsewhere?
No, that's not what I said. There is the possibility to make changes under the CA. Broadly speaking, it sets some parameters around how those changes are made and what if there are knock-on effects for making those changes. So the city can definitely propose rates, a different rate schedule. There's a process set out for doing so within certain bounds. The city, for example, is not able to set parking rates to zero without any other changes, because naturally that there's then no revenues to repay bondholders. So, but yes, there is a process by which things can change. There are just parameters how that.
So it's more of a management role. And my last question before we open it up to public testimony is, I see you when there's a problem. It's kind of like a helicopter view. How much time do you spend on the Annapolis parking, or how much time will you? And I know that's not in my purview to ask, because I have no. No.
But I have no problems answering that.
Okay.
I come in probably once to twice a month. Okay. I was here. I walked the garage when it was empty, right before demolition. I have been many times walking, with our folks. But having said that, the fact that you haven't seen me is irrelevant. So I will make sure, and I said this at the beginning, I will make sure that we get, and Brendan and his folks get the support from us all throughout this, so we can get to a different place. But I do come here. I can sort of share with you later on how many times I've been here, but I think he's sick and tired of
Not necessary
me.
for me to see you. I just want to make sure that it gets the attention. So
Okay.
as far as the resolution, I think I might be able to take a little bit of liberty in it. The first sentence, let me get my readers here, does say, the purpose of starting an investigation into problems with the Noah Hillman garage parking contractor and finding solutions to eliminate, da-da-da-da-da. But it also says for the purpose of starting investigation into problems with the Noah Hillman garage parking contractor. So I say that because you're gonna, the full scope of the issue does involve residents. The full scope of the Hillman garage, it involves, obviously operations of the Hillman, but also the burden to the District 1 and 2 residents who are essentially an extension of the garage operation. And I say that to preface the testimony that you are going to hear, because I predict that it's going to be mostly about residential parking. And I think, as my colleague Alderwoman Finlayson said, it is a fact-finding session, so I would encourage you to take notes on this, on their testimony, and that I predict that you'll have to come back and address those specifically. So without further ado, we have a list.
Do you want me to? All right, we do have a list of people that signed up, and once we've gone through the list, we'll be able to ask additional if they came into the room after the list was brought up here. But the first person.
Oh, the minutes, yeah.
Oh, yes. So we're asking that each person giving public testimony limits their testimony to no more than 3 minutes. Ellie does have a hook that will pull you from the podium if it goes beyond 3 minutes, just in the interest of time. And the first person to come to the podium, please, Beth Dozel.
Are we okay? Green light.
Need it. I have a voice, you can hear me 10 miles away, so I may not need it. Again, this is about residential parking. My name is Beth Dozal. I live at 86 Market Street. I've been a resident of Annapolis for 34 years. I'm testifying today in support of changes to the current residential parking program in parking districts 1 and 2, and changes that as residents I would like the city to incorporate to enhance this program. Only in a limited way do these requests change the impact of the financial framework of the public-private partnership the city has with the Annapolis Mobility and Resilience Partnership. My request, as outlined below, requires the city to show respect for the residents of these parking districts. Residents of Annapolis all understand that parking in downtown is a challenge because these areas of Ward 1 are enjoyed by all, visitors, businesses, guests of residents, legislators, contractors, students, as well as the residents themselves. Ward 1 is arguably and continues to be the center of Annapolis. City government needs to treat everyone who resides, has a business, or visits downtown with respects and concerns for their needs. The current parking program is not yet reflective of what the residents want or deserve. Therefore, parking in the concentrated historic neighborhoods need foremost to focus on the parking needs of residents of those neighborhoods. I am requesting that there be some changes. Parking code changes. Now, these don't relate to premium. Currently, residents have no avenue to purchase long-term parking passes for guests. That may stay for weeks or even months. These would be relatives or friends that are not residing here and will not have a local address, but are staying with residents for many reasons. They are sick and they need help, or the resident is sick and needs help, child returning home until they can find a job, and so forth. Situations like this do not happen often, but when they do, residents need to be able to provide parking for these guests. Example, I have this very issue coming up. My USNA sponsored daughter is returning to Maryland to live. Until she determines where she wants to live and secures housing, she will be residing with me. 10-day daily passes a month and 25 daily passes a year will not cover her potential stay or parking pass needs. I'm more than willing to purchase long-term parking guest passes for the duration of her stay. However, at this time, the city does not provide an avenue for me to do that. Another code change is to provide free 2-hour parking for residential guests. This can be done without using promo codes, by using promo codes, having a monthly limit as other parking passes are currently done. The amount reduced from the financial framework of the public-private partnership would be minimal, and the quality of life, which was mentioned here, would be huge. Imagine that every time somebody comes to visit you, they have got to pay for parking, even if they're going to stay 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then they can't come back and pay again. So if they say you're sick and they came to check on you, wanted to go get you something to eat, they go off, they come back, they can't buy again. So we just need to get back to the 2 free-hour parking for guests, for residents. And creating a long-term residential parking pass would offset any minor revenue loss, reestablishing the 2 free-hour residential parking passes. Software changes. The parking pass software is not user-friendly. It's hard to understand and to navigate. As we've talked here, and it turns out, apparently, if you're not in the certain app, you're not going to get the results you're expecting. Often it can't be navigated at all. To correct this, requested software changes were presented at both town hall meetings. Residents were told they were being worked on, and they haven't been addressed yet. And I just want to say one other thing.
Okay.
My husband tried to use the 2-hour free parking for residents. He gave up. Now, he is computer savvy. He is the former director of the Department of Interior for Telecommunications. He knows what he's doing. I was a computer specialist and data systems analyst for the Department of Justice. I know what I'm doing. This whole parking software is beyond difficult, and it doesn't need to be that way. All you need to do is inform people what they need to do, even, so.
Thank you. Next up on our list is Susan Margulies.
Thank you so much. I'm Susan Margulies of 113 Conduit Street. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I did about 30 seconds worth of Googling when I saw the slide where Premium Parking partners. And I looked at the city of Excelsior in Minnesota, where Premium Parking manages residential parking. They have a population of 2,299, so not exactly comparable with Annapolis, but residents are allowed to buy 5-day passes. They're allowed to buy 7-day passes. They have annual parking passes, and every resident is allowed to buy 5 visitor passes in the city of Excelsior. So now we want the Excelsior package. Just a playful comment. We would be thrilled to participate in focus groups. We really would. We did write an editorial in February of this year, outlining our concerns, and we started our petition in March of, this year. And we were here in this very room just 3 or 4 months ago, and each in the editorial, in the petition, and what we spoke 3 months ago, and today, all of our concerns are still exactly the same. And there has been no change, except that we openly acknowledge we used to get 25 promo codes piecemeal. Now we get 12 all at once because we lost our 6-hour parking passes. So we acknowledge that there's been one tiny change from February when we did start illuminating precisely what our concerns are in careful detail. Just the most gentle question. I very much appreciate that you own the code. As a software engineer, I know what that means. You have the code base, you can make changes, but so gently. Owning the code is not the same as employing the software engineers that wrote the code. And do you have staff of software engineers that can fix the code? It's a question I think that City Council should ask and address, because if there is no staff of software engineers, there's a reason that we illuminated our concerns in February, and we're still here in November with exactly the same concerns. We don't have multi-day passes. And I have my computer, and we just can't get multi-day passes. We don't have the Excelsior package. If I try to book parking in advance, I can book it for 1 day. And then I tried to do the from 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. the next day, and then 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. the next day. I still couldn't get the multi-day pass feature to work. So, yeah, we're here to be part of the solution.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, Susan, your questions are on the record, and they will be answered. Any testimony is on the record. We don't have to re-ask it as a city council. That's why this is a public fact-finding session. So thank you for those questions, and we'll expect an answer from Premium.
Right. Next up on our list is Robert Madden.
My name is Robert Madden, and I live at 11 College Avenue in Annapolis, District 1 parking, which is administered by Premium Parking. District 1 and District 2 are considered to be another level of the Hillman parking garage for the revenue situation, not part of the other districts. I'd like to ask the Premium Parking representative, Chester, if we know about one other residential group that's out there. Most of yours are garages and parking lots, but the 950. We'd like to know the other couple that are in residential. Maybe we can learn some things from them. Maybe they have some interesting ideas or best practices that we can get onto. I really believe that Premium Parking is pretty desperate to keep Annapolis becoming a one-off for their nationwide parking network. And the reason is that they want to be the same everywhere. It's a lot easier for them. Not so much easier for us, but easier for them. We've had a couple of town meetings, which were, people came, a lot of residents, and Ellie put this together, and we all expressed our views. And we went and found out there were 8 items that we gave to Brendan, 8 items that we were hoping that they could resolve. The only one that I know of is the all year long parking promo codes that we got. Other ones we haven't seen. He said he'd get back to us, but we haven't seen anything that's happened. I'm going to just give this to him afterwards because it's a list of the 8 things that he said he would get back to us on. So here's the other problem I have, and that's that can anyone here tell me the URL that we go to in District 1 to be able to get a daily pass? It's not on the Annapolis.com website. It's not on the Premium Parking website. Do you know what it is? Maybe you know. I said, what's the URL that we go to for a daily pass for residential parking for someone that's coming in?
I mean, it's too long to communicate, but I can show you that.
Well, you ready for it? It's real easy. It's premiumparking.com/P4905. If you put that in, you go right to where you're going to get them. We can't find that anywhere.
So on that page below the rates, there's a permit request button. You click that, it'll take you to an electronic type of thing. And that's where it'll basically give you prompted questions for the information you need to process that request.
Well, first of all,
Could you speak into the
you're
mic?
correct that that's how you get the codes, but once you have the codes, to put them in, you have to go to this 4905, and that's how you get them. So now we have an office for premium parking in Annapolis, and it's they can talk to you, and they can and you can go talk to them. They'll call you up, but they won't email you. Why? Because the emails all have to be approved by higher-ups in premium parking. I guess the lawyers figured that one out. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You said do you have those 8 questions in writing, Bob? There was only 5.
I have another couple.
You have 8?
It's 5 on here.
Yeah, I have something with 5, but those are.
This is the petition.
We can shoot you an email with
The 8. Yeah,
Thank
the 8.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Rosalind Calvin.
Thank you. First, I want to say I agree with absolutely everything the other speakers have said so far, so I won't repeat any of that. A couple things I wanted to say. One is I have seen premium parking present twice, once as a volunteer at the visitor center and then again now. And I appreciate you all are running a business and I understand you have to make a profit, but there seems to be a very different attitude about sort of, it feels like, and it has felt like ever since we moved to Annapolis 20 years ago, that it's inconvenient and not welcoming to come to Annapolis. And what I hear from you guys is more about sort of the profit and the fees, whereas I think you as a council member had echoed that we should be looking at this as what makes it more appealing for people to come downtown and welcoming. I'm all about paying for what you use, but being fined for excess parking seems like a wrong philosophy when it should be pay for what you parked at. So $50 as a maximum, to see that as like a parking meter fine seems like a philosophy that's backwards. So I think the thinking should be turned to what benefits businesses and makes it a welcoming place. As a resident, I can say I'm all for returning the 2-hour free parking. It's inconvenient to have guests come over and say, great to see you, fix yourself a beer, let me run upstairs to my computer and plug in your license plate. And by the way, go back outside and tell me your license plate. It's just not a convenient process for either drop-ins or even planned visitors. So it's difficult for short-term. I agree with the idea of it's difficult for long-term. We had our mid come back and stay with us, and he arrived at 8:30, and I had to make sure to interrupt whatever we were doing at 8:30 p.m. to go back in and do the next day, because you can't kind of pre-do it. There's a chance that everything I can't do on that system is doable, but it is very user-unfriendly. It's not intuitive. I would love the idea of a focus group, and one of those focus groups should be let's sit and play with the website, because as you said, you can't find it on the website. You know, I can tell you what our car licenses are, and you know that we have our resident parking permit, but I just went on while we're sitting here. I can't tell you how to do a guest pass. And every time I have to call customer support to figure out how to do a guest pass. I think it's difficult for contractor parking. At one point we had all our water heaters replaced. The plumbing company brought 4 different trucks. They didn't know which trucks they were going to use which day, so I couldn't pre-pay for their passes. I had to go to work, but so if someone shows up in the middle of the job with a different truck, what do I do to sort of make sure that they're not going to get fined? So I don't know if there is some other sort of contractor program, but there should be a contractor program for, you don't know when they're going to arrive, which truck they're going to use, and how long they're going to be there. Really hard to anticipate those things. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Just real quickly, I just want to say there is a contractor program in the code that you can apply for in advance, just FYI. And then the only thing I want to suggest, since you're going away with these questions, is on the 2-hour, opening back up the 2-hour parking, just bear with me being a devil's advocate here. what that will do is open up the gates to the public parking or the, transient people parking in those spaces. Are you, when you respond to this, are you able to enforce that? That's the dilemma. Do you know what I mean? That we're back to square one, but it's just something to think about if there's some sort of a compromise. Go ahead.
Right, next up is Jody Jones.
Judy.
Oh, sorry, Judy.
As soon as she stood up, I realized it wasn't Judy. I know.
My name is Judy Jones, and I live at 10 Fleet Street in downtown Annapolis, where everything is happening all the time. I didn't prepare anything because I thought we were just going to talk about the Hillman Garage. That's no excuse, however. I also have not gone to these meetings because I'm sort of fed up. I'm still fed up about the short-term rental situation in this town. But I will say, and I thank the people here who very knowingly testified, I think enforcement is really the key to an awful lot of things that are going on. For example, I received a ticket on about 4 weeks ago, for parking at an expired meter on Cornhill Street. Now, those of you that have been here a long time, I've been here 39 years, I have never seen a meter on Cornhill Street. I went to fight it. I had the little form, and I couldn't submit my information. I finally got in touch with somebody in New Orleans, and that person said, well, you know where it says number 1, put your address? Yes, I do. Well, you have to put the same address for number 2. I said, but that's ridiculous because I would be putting my address 2 times. No, that'll work. Submitted it, perfect, it went through. And I said, there are no meters, et cetera, and I even had a map showing this. And they forgave me my $50. But I got a nasty note saying, well, you should know that those signs that we posted are really the meters. Now, I asked you, and that's all I'm going to say today, how do you feed a sign? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person up is Andrew Hare.
Madam Chair, thank you. My name is Andrew Hare. I live about 200 yards that way on Duke of Gloucester. So I'm quite familiar with what we've gone through over the last, I'd say 2 to 3 years, actually building the garage and then also the residential parking. My comments will be focused pretty much on the residential parking side, but if I have time, I'll get to an observation I've had about Hillman. I think the important thing is that we know the problems. I think anybody that's had to park here knows that we had a good system, and I live in envy of people in District Parking 3 because they are not subjected to the garbage we have in 1 and 2. I will try to actually focus a little bit on a very famous Harvard Business School case study that some may know in this room. And there are 2 of them, there's a pair of them, but one actually manages the balance between something called customers, investors, and the law. In other words, you're trying to thread the needle. Whose interests do you serve? And as I listen to this group of 3, it's quite clear they're going after the middle one, which is investors. They want to make money. They don't care about the first or the third. Or maybe they do, but it wasn't obvious to me when these people talked. The biggest concern I also have is I've been in the telecom business for the better part of 40 years. It's vastly more complex than the business you're in. And I have clients that have a net promoter score in excess of 60, digital clients. You're talking about 20 or 30, their boards would fire the CEO. They would be gone if you had an NPS of 20 or 25. It's unacceptable that it's this low. I think, let me just talk very specifically about 3, if I could. Contractors, we've talked about it before. And I think the previous speaker had a very good point of you have multiple contractors, and I've got to run out, get a picture of the license tag, go back in and try to get actually a pass. And the second is what I'll call long-term visitor. When a long-term visitor is not so much what one speaker talked about, but let's say my family comes for an extended period of time, like a week. I have to get on a system, and I have to get a parking pass each day. And there is a gap that sits between when one pass finishes and the next pass opens up of 1 hour. My son-in-law was the proud owner of 2 parking tickets because of that. They caught him in the hour. I give up my time.
Well, no. With a show of hands, how many more testimonies are there? If we can give you another minute.
Okay, I'll very quickly on Hillman. I am on the wait list for Hillman. I cringe when I walk by on either side of Hillman and see 200, 300. Tonight there was 360 unused spaces. I don't understand the concept of this. The airline industry focused on this. An airline seat that is not filled has no revenue. A parking place that doesn't have a person in it is no revenue. And so I don't understand the concept of how you can't fill that garage. Are your rates wrong? I'd be very happy, if Madam Chair, to serve on the Focus Committee, if that's at all possible. As a resident and having been punished for being in District 2, and with that, I yield my time.
Thank you very much. The next person on my list is Michael Ernst.
Hello, my name is Michael Ernst, and I'm a business owner here in Annapolis. Don't cringe, Ellie. I'm not going to rant. My main concern, I've got a lot of concerns with the parking in Annapolis, but my main concern came up today with the question that was asked by this alderman in regard to treating the parking garage as if it were a metered space. It doesn't work. I have customers that want to park in front of my store, but they want to park there for more than 2 hours because they want to go shopping. So instead, I send them to the parking garage. And if the first time I have a customer pay for 2 hours of parking in the parking garage, and he gets a $50 ticket for extending his time period, that's the last time that customer comes to Annapolis. Right now, we have lost 4 businesses on Maryland Avenue, where I have been for 15 years, in the last week. It's a revolving door with businesses in this city. And if that is the attitude of the parking garage or the parking people, we're going to lose a lot more businesses. Unfortunately, I overheard one of the people that works for the city speaking with this gentleman because I was sitting in the back hall, and she made a comment about how the real revenue of the city comes from residents. And she made the comment that the businesses, yes, they pay a minimal amount in their taxes and things like that. But then she also made the comment, and she said that businesses have to pay a higher tax revenue than a resident does, which I do. That's besides the point. I lived in a city in West Palm Beach, Florida, where downtown became a ghost town because of the parking situation. And no businesses wanted to be there anymore. And when that became a ghost town, suddenly the residential tax rates went through the roof. And then the residents all moved out of the town. That's not what we want here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say, though, that is a really important point that Michael made, that you're not differentiating the garage from transient parking. I mean, any parking model, or, you know, in dynamic pricing, performance pricing, or whatever, is that the meters on the street are for short-term stays and that garages are for longer-term stays. And the fact that you're treating the garage like a meter, as I said before, a giant parking space, negates that philosophy. I thank you for bringing that up, Michael.
All right. I believe that there was another person that raised their hand for testimony when we asked. Yes.
I wasn't on the list, but I can go up there.
Can you please state your name and address into the microphone?
So I'm Stephanie Smith. I live at 35 Cathedral Street, which is District 2. And, so I know this is a garage-focused meeting, but it definitely affects residential street parking. I have street parking like a lot of people downtown, and all of this affects street parking.
Excuse me, could you make sure your mic's on? Can't really hear you very well.
Hello? Okay, sorry, okay. So I know this is a parking garage-focused meeting, but this also affects street parking a lot when there are issues with the parking garage, and then everybody goes to the streets to park that are visiting. So street parking is stretched right now. And I've said this before, and I'm just doubling up on what everyone else is saying, our free resident 2-hour parking for guests, the free 2-hour parking disappearing without any notification is a real problem for many things, like for my dog walker, for my mom that's a senior, if she wants to come by and use my bathroom for 5 minutes, like to not be able to like have that. And if we need to have a piece of paper like we used to differentiate that would be very helpful. But it's all like, and just, you know, I've gotten 5 parking tickets in error since this new company took over. That I had to fight and go through that process. So it's just stuff that's not resolved. So I just hope that all this can be resolved and things fixed that are wrong instead of, like, I've come to several of these meetings and it's the same issues coming up repeatedly. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lynn Sanji. I'm on Green Street, so I've been intimately involved with the whole process of Hillman. And my observation really is kind of more big picture, and it has to do with getting more people into Hillman Garage. One thing I have not seen is any kind of marketing, signage, whatever that says parking in Hillman is cheaper than parking on the street. Presumably it is by the hour. So, I mean, that needs to be kind of front and center when people come down Duke of Gloucester. I don't know what kind of sign it would take, but I think it hasn't, you know, the facility hasn't been marketed to the public. And I think that's something that would really help. That's it.
Thank you.
Oh, we have a hard stop. Lynn, can I ask you a question? I know that during the course of construction of Hillman, hi. I know that during the course of construction of Hillman, you were getting people that just kept parking on Green Street because they'd make the turn. So are they still doing that? I mean, Yeah, that's the point that you're trying to make, that even with Hillman there, they drive right by it and try to park on Green
Yeah, I
Street.
mean, the
Yeah.
general, way to do it here, if you're coming into town as a, non-resident, you come up, Duke of Gloucester, and you first turn on Green Street to see if you can find something open. If you don't find something open, then you go around and, find whatever.
Oh, I'm not on mic.
Not on the mic.
Oh, sorry. One background information, though, that I think that I need to say is that the implementation of Park Mobile and the deletion of the quote-unquote 2-hour free parking was asked, if you will, in community meetings, et cetera, with the Ward 1 Residents Association. And it was reasonably accepted because it was a way of, during the Hillman construction, to keep transient parkers from the neighborhoods. And it worked. I think the question is, for 30 years? So, anyways.
But I do think if there was better marketing of facility in terms of comparing it to pricing on street versus parking in the garage.
Yeah, sorry, I know.
That might help.
Okay.
Thank you. I have one more person, I believe, and then we do have a hard stop at 6 p.m. The woman in the blue and white sweater. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw that you don't have anything on, you don't have any legislation.
And purchase letters.
I'm Barbara Dugan. I'm also on Green Street. I'm right around the corner. I am going to be inundated with light pollution and noise pollution because of the juxtaposition of the garage, but that's a part of my quality of life issue. But what I'm asking now is who enforces and who monitors the garage? We're getting skateboarders. We're getting some speed demons in there. At various times of the day or week, I can't pinpoint that for you. And sometimes it sounds like they're actually having parties on the roof. Nothing major, but it's a concrete building and sound travels, light travels, noise travels. So we have the generators, we've got the heat pump on the back of City Hall, and we've got all these lights. And I'm going to do a lumen study on the light pollution because I think that is one of the serious impingements to our quality of life, is the light and the noise and the lack of enforcement.
What's your address?
I'm sorry, 161 Green.
Sorry?
161 Green Street.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm 2 doors down, and I agree with
So before we adjourn the path forward, we'd like to have you back. You've taken a lot of information. Again, in the spirit of the resolution, it is a fact-finding session, and we hope that you've listened and you'll have some answers and that you can bring back. So how much time do you need? Should it be after the holidays, or I'll leave it to you.
No, I'm working on your schedule. So whatever you tell me that I need to be back and we need to give you, updates, you let us know or you let me know. Yeah.
No, we are. We're here to start working on the issues that have been raised. The only thing that I would say regarding schedule is like some of these items and issues need to be also coordinated with city staff. So I don't want to make any commitments.
I understand.
On behalf of city staff.
And I understand that you're meeting with the city upper management in a couple of weeks. I understand that. So would like to have you back in January after the holidays, and again, this resolution was written in October, which was sort of still in the
height of the crazy.
Yeah, the height of the crazy. So, I'm not funny, but so we're hoping that the data will come back, more positive, I guess, relatively speaking. I don't, like what you had said, Mr. Here. I don't know what these measurements mean, as far as there's someone raising her hand.
Madam Chair, we are down.
Yeah,
we actually have to adjourn our meeting. If there's something that you'd like to talk about, we will catch up with you.
I just wanted to see if you have a sign up for the open.
Right.
We will get one forwarded.
Yeah. Okay. Do we say it together? Do I adjourn first? You go first. Okay, I'll accept a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee meeting.
adjourn. Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I'll accept a motion to adjourn the Transportation Committee meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. 5:59.